Close your eyes and imagine a nightmare. You wake up this morning. Yesterday you could have used your life savings to buy a house for your family. Today, they barely cover a week's worth of groceries. What about your salary? The moment it hits your bank account, its value disappears. People aren't carrying wallets, they're hauling stacks of cash in wheelbarrows. Does this sound like a futuristic dystopia? You are profoundly wrong. This is hyperinflation, a financial apocalypse that has happened countless times throughout history. These are not just academic stories. They are intimate accounts of how the system you trust can brutally betray you. Most of us treat money as an unshakable pillar of security. It's a promise backed by a bank. But history laughs and whispers. Money is simply a belief. When that belief shatters, the consequences are devastating. They wipe out more than just numbers on a screen. They obliterate governments, social order, and the future of entire families. These financial wildfires are devastating proof that the ice beneath our entire economic structure is thin. Today, we're delving into the harrowing stories of 5 countries, 5 major economies, whose currencies collapsed. Their tragedies will become our survival manual. They contain the essential knowledge that keeps us standing. As you absorb these lessons, engrave this warning in your mind. Inflation never makes a loud entrance. It approaches with a whisper. It creeps up on you silently. By the time you finally realize that you can no longer afford your old life, sadly, the escape routes have usually been sealed shut. Let's begin this important education. We will start with Germany in 1923, the Weimar Republic. After World War I, Germany was utterly defeated. The country was burdened with a crushing war reparation bill of 132 billion gold marks, an amount that was effectively impossible to pay. So what does a government do when facing debt? They gamble with your future. They chose the path of least resistance, unlimited money printing. It was an act of economic self-destruction. At first, inflation was gradual, then it rapidly accelerated. By November 1923, the situation had become utterly insane. A loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. Can you fathom that? People were literally using bundles of banknotes as fuel for their stoves because the paper's value as kindling exceeded its purchasing power. Within weeks, an entire generation's worth of middle-class savings, retirements, and college funds vanished into nothingness. The true tragedy wasn't the currency collapse, but the collapse of trust. This financial and social upheaval created the perfect climate of desperation and anger that allowed Adolf Hitler to seize power just a decade later. Financial destruction is the most potent fuel for political extremism. Now let's jump to the early 2000s. Zimbabwe. President Mugabe's government faced international sanctions and economic ruin brought on by disastrous political decisions. When the economy collapsed, what did they do? You guessed it. They hit the printing press hard. The resulting inflation was one of the fastest in history. By 2008, the inflation rate had reached an astonishing 79.6 billion%. Prices doubled every 24 hours. How did the government respond? They just kept adding zeros. They printed $100 trillion bills. It was a shameful monument to their complete loss of control. The cost? All pensions were wiped out. Industries were destroyed. An entire generation was forced into economic exile. This proves a chilling fact. When political failure destroys a nation's ability to produce, no amount of printing money can help. Next is a moment of pure numerical terror. Hungary, 1946. It is considered the worst hyperinflation on record. After World War II, the government printed pengo to cover debt and rebuilding costs. This time, however, the loss of control was instant and total. At its peak, prices doubled every 15 hours. The inflation rate reached an unbelievable 41.9 quadrillion%. The term ceased to be economic and became a mathematical absurdity. The government was forced to create new currency denominations just to keep up. Eventually, they abandoned the currency entirely. Hungary's middle class was completely annihilated. Their life savings and futures were erased. This shows us that hyperinflation is not just an economic reset, but an act of societal erasure. Moving on to a stark contemporary example, Venezuela in the 2010s. It is a nation with one of the world's largest oil reserves. How could it fail? Through corruption, price controls, and reckless printing to fund unsustainable programs. The government pushed the printing press far beyond any rational limit. By 2018, inflation surpassed 1,000,000%. Imagine having to rush to the supermarket on payday because tomorrow would be too late. The country reverted to a barter economy. Doctors and engineers fled the country to work minimum wage jobs abroad. The government eventually removed 6 zeros from the currency, but the damage done to the lives of millions was profound and devastating. This story illustrates that, even with abundant natural resources, a lack of trust and sound policy renders money worthless. Our final painful lesson is Yugoslavia in the 1990s. The violent dissolution of the nation, coupled with war and sanctions, resulted in a rapid economic collapse. In 1993, inflation reached 313 million% per month. Citizens stopped using the official currency altogether. To survive, they reverted to using German marks and US dollars. The local currency was useless. It was only good for starting fires or as makeshift wallpaper. This repeating pattern shows us that the true value of money lies not in the law or the paper itself, but in the collective belief we share in it. When that belief dies, the paper serves only as kindling. Now, the critical question that brings us back to the present is this: could this happen here? Look at the data. Global debt is at record levels. The U.S. national debt exceeds $34 trillion and continues to rise. Over the last decade, central banks have pumped trillions into the global economy. That money had to manifest somewhere. In 2021-2022, it landed squarely in your cost of living. Central banks panicked and raised interest rates aggressively. Who paid the ultimate cost? Not the wealthy, who benefited from the boom in cheap money, but you, the working, salaried person. Rents soared, wages stalled. The system sent the bill directly to your household. The warning signs are unmistakable. The conviction that we can print our way out of debt. The arrogance that we can borrow forever. These are the same fatal assumptions that were made in Weimar, Zimbabwe, and Venezuela. The difference now is scale. Never before has the entire global economy been so fragile, indebted, and dependent on central bank intervention. If the chain of trust breaks, it won't be confined to one nation. It will be a systemic event. What are the most critical personal lessons to take away from these 5 financial tragedies? True wealth is purchasing power, not paper. Real value is tangible. Land, indispensable skills, hard assets, and the ability to generate value outside the standard financial system. Paper wealth vanishes, but real value endures. Belief is the lifeblood of currency. Money dies when faith in it dies. This faith can be destroyed quickly by political hubris and reckless printing. Finally, inflation is a silent thief. It is a hidden tax and a slow, calculated theft of your financial freedom. While governments can inflate their way out of debt, you cannot deflate your grocery bill. This is why financial education is no longer just about getting rich. It's an essential form of protection. These 5 tragedies were the inevitable price paid for the seductive lie that money can be created without consequence. But now you know the pattern. You are no longer a victim of the system. You are a conscious observer. The next time someone tells you, things could never get that bad here, simply nod and let the whispers of history speak through you. Remember this: history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but if you fail to heed its lessons, it will crush you all the same. Never forget that.